o'clock on May 12th, 2025 at the Ashland County Courthouse is convened a meeting of the Ashland County Planning Committee. And the first item on the agenda is to call to order and to ask for the roll call, please.
George Bousset.
Here.
Bradley Ray.
Here.
Elizabeth Franick.
Here.
Thank you. Pat Kinney is excused. Gary Mertig.
Here.
Dan Grady.
Here.
Lissa Radke.
Here.
Charlie Ortman.
Here.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Carisha, for helping me turn on the mic. Okay, so approval of the agenda. Are there comments or suggestions to modify the agenda, or shall we go with it as it is?
Move to approve.
Charlie moves to approve.
Brad will second.
Brad seconds.
Oh, wait, I'm a non-voting member. Sorry.
Any discussion? All in favor? Say aye, please. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so the agenda is approved. So we move into our first of two public comment sessions. I didn't see anybody signed up outside for public comment. Is there anybody online for public comment on items pertaining to this agenda? Is there anybody online for public comment? One last time, anybody online for public comment? So we will suspend public comments until item number 7 on the agenda. There'll be a second chance. So we move on to item 4, which is approval of the minutes of the March 19th, 2025 Planning Committee meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved, Franick.
Is there a second?
Brad will second.
There's a second. Is there discussion? There's no discussion. Well, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes of prior meeting are approved. So now we move on to item 5, which are discussion and action items. First item of business being pending and active surveys for the Ashland County committees and departments, of which we asked Lissa Radke and Erica Hennikel to take the lead. So Lissa, can you come tell us where you stand in terms of soliciting information from the committees and how that process will work, please?
Sure. Well, one of the options that I talked about with George is a short, free online survey that we could plan with the University of Wisconsin's Qualtrics survey program. It is 100% free to use. We can easily make a survey set up for anyone with a link can access it. So the way that would work is we would email, and the best way to do it is to email a QR code, which is just a little picture. You've probably seen them all over. It's got some dotted spaces in between a small square or a circle, which actually is a live link right to a survey on the Qualtrics program. And people just answer the questions like they would any other survey. You could have it be as simple as the 2-question survey for the department heads, or because these committees are a little bit more complex in their membership and they meet differently than department heads, you could have a couple of different types of questions for them. But the method would be really easy. They either use that QR code to access the questions or a short web link. And the way that could unfold is that at every committee meeting, and I think, George, at the last time we met, you said there were about 30 committee meetings. We would send them in advance a link or a QR code to the survey, ask them to add that to one of their agendas, and distribute that to their committee members. They could take 5 minutes to take the survey at the meeting itself. All the information goes right to the Qualtrics website and it's tallied, and George and I could have access to it. Actually, anybody that you wanted on this group could have access to it. but you would see the information tallied immediately. You could send that to them once in the process or twice, as many times as you wanted. So main points are it's free, it's very easy. The links are easy for access, and anyone who has the link at those committee meetings could take the survey. All the results are tallied and sent to us.
Thank you. I have one thought, is that with regard to these committees and commissions, we have a liaison or members of committees for all Ashland County Board committees and liaisons. So it's pretty easy for that member to solicit comment from these committees and commissions if they would just put it on their agenda and then record it in their minutes. Because all it takes is documentation in the minutes of their meeting to be used as feedback impact to this group. The survey would amplify that certainly, but an easy way to get some quick off the top of their heads input is simply to have it put on their agendas, discuss at their meeting, put in their minutes, and feed fed back to us. So that's one other approach. So any other comments on that topic? Then move on to Eric. Oh, Charlie.
Would the chairs of the committee then just get copies of that survey and then maybe they could go through the survey as a committee, or how would the input be solicited?
I think it's the discretion of the chair of the subcommittee how you want to operate in collecting the data related to your subcommittee. I don't think we need to prescribe it. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I
Brad?
just add that from coming to county board meetings, the number of stuff that people aren't reading before they come to the meeting to discuss means that they're not going to be thinking about it. And so I think the perfect thing is to put it on the agenda to talk about it and then give them the survey to go hopefully do it right after the meeting. And then hopefully they'll do it right at the meeting or right after the meeting and actually do something, and we'll get better feedback. And then if we set up a survey through that Qualtrics, it's something that we could use a lot for public engagement and get out as well, not just staff and committee members. So I would say use both methods, put it on the agenda, talk about it, and then give them the survey link to hopefully actually follow through with.
Any other thoughts?
I don't mean to call any county board members out, but there's a
So Erica, how are you doing with the departments?
Yeah, so George and I created this departmental survey. We envision it as the first of possibly 2 surveys, one to come much further along once we have a lot more input and the data from Northwest Regional. I sent this to 19 department heads and a few additional people who are not fully department heads but have particular roles within the county that Dan and I thought should fill this out for us. I sent that in probably the 3rd week of April. I've set a deadline by the end of May because George wanted some feedback by then. We've received 4 completed surveys so far. I think it's turning into being a really useful tool. Some department heads are kind of reiterating things across departments. Other departments are stating things that are needed and are on the horizon for them specifically. I'll send a reminder to all people that haven't turned it in yet late next week. I have had also at least 3 or 4 good, productive conversations with other department heads that just wanted more input before they answered. So that's where we are with that.
Questions or comments for Erica on that piece? Any more discussion on item 5A? If not, we'll move on to item 5B, which is expectations for work with Northwest Regional Planning. Dan, could you maybe summarize how we came out of that meeting this morning?
So you should all have a sheet that looks like this. Um, so how Northwest Regional is going to help is they're going to be able to facilitate some meetings. They're going to gather all the background information. That basically the first book of the comp plan. And then they're going to integrate it with the farmland preservation plan that they're already doing for us. The group, the goal, so they'll be doing most of that work. And then this group here will be it'll be our ideas that feed into that, how we want to do it. So we are not at plan month 1 yet. Well, I guess we're just at pre-planning month 1. The official timeline doesn't start until Northwest Regional's contract is signed. We expect that to happen sometime next month. And the reason for that is it just takes that long for the Department of Administration to get the contracts all ready and the money out.
Questions or comments? A question, Dan, does this scope of work need an approval of any kind or?
It does not. The county board already approved contracting with Northwest Regional.
So if there's nothing else on item 5B, move out into C, development of public participation. Oh, Eric, I'm sorry.
Just because it wasn't posted with the minutes, I just wanted to let the people online know that I have emailed them the scope of work that we've received. It's got the full scope of work plus a kind of calendar at the back. The meetings that Dan was saying will be run by Northwest Regional are listed. There are 8 of them on the last, I believe, 2 pages of that document.
I marked up the Burnett County Public Participation Plan. It's like a pretty good plan to me. We'll have to approve this at our next meeting, but it's handing it out for information and preliminary discussion right now. Then
We can't hear whoever's talking.
I'll repeat that. Hang on a second.
He'll repeat it. Can you hold on a second, please?
Okay, this is George. Just did. Okay, so I've just handed out marked up copy of the Burnett County Comprehensive Plan Public Participation Plan, because we're going to need a public participation plan, which we should probably approve at our next meeting in June. So I've handed out copies to people here in the room, and for those who are not in the room, I would put copies in your mail slots in Dan's office that you can pick up. The other thing I handed out is the idea. It's sort of a draft idea for a public notice to let people know that they'd be able to come to any of our planning committee meetings and give public input, either in the 3-minute comment sessions or in the public access session at the end of the meeting. I mean, and along with that, I sort of overlapping to a further agenda item about our future meetings here. Unless there's a better idea, I would just like to flag out the 3rd Monday in every month as a time for our planning committee meetings. Now, we've been meeting at 1 o'clock. There have been some suggestions that 1 o'clock might not be the best hour of the day, but my thinking is that there's no perfect day, and the further out in time that we can know something's on our calendar, we can personally, if we can, make adjustments to fit that meeting into our calendars. So that's will be my suggestion when we get down to item F. But right now we're on item C, which is development of public participation. And like I said, you'll have a copy of this Burnett plan to look through. Made a lot of sense to me. We talked about it in the discussion with Northwest Regional Planning on Zoom this morning with Eric and Dan and I. And like I say, we should probably put that on the agenda for the next meeting for us to approve, because I think that is required, right? Any thoughts or comments on public participation? Dan?
I just want to ask Carisha, can you please upload this to today's packet? That way everybody can see it.
I had one quick thing to add about public participation. About 2 months ago, I had asked Rachel and Mary Pardee, the director of UW Extension, for an email address that could be used for this purpose, mainly for outreach of all kinds, for the county and outreach that UW might be doing so that people's personal names and emails aren't sent out to all over the internet. So we asked for something like extension info@ashlandcountywisc.edu. So it's a county email address, and it would go to me and Blake, our office manager at UW Extension. And that website, or I'm sorry, that email address was working for some of us on that list, but not all of us. So Rachel Lipka, the county's IT director, decided not to use a county address. So Mary Pardee is looking for a university address, a nice generic address that would go out on all of your outreach materials, that whatever you identify in your participation plan, so that it gives people an anonymous website that they can submit information at any time, and it would be reviewed and received by staff regularly.
Erica, how do you compare and contrast that with what we discussed this morning of the survey capacity discussed by Northwest Regional Planning, which was a different service?
Yes, so in the scope of work that Northwest Regional Planning that we talked about this morning, they're on page, where is it? Is it on page 2? They are, oh, it's at the bottom of page 3. They offer to put together a digital survey, and they sent us a copy of that they have used for another county. I was able to skim it after the meeting. I think it looks pretty great. I don't know if there would be benefits around Northwest Regional doing it, perhaps just for time saving, right? So that we sort of develop and adapt the questions to what we believe that they should be, but then they administer that. Or does that go back to Lissa? And with the sort of previous Qualtrics tool that she was talking about for the subcommittees as well, does that address your question, George?
Right. I mean, it sounds to me that in some ways these are complementary, but I think we probably should put this on the agenda for next meeting so that we don't, we straighten out and we don't stumble over each other or confuse people.
Yeah, that sounds fine with me. And Extension's happy not to do this kind of work if regional planning is contracted and they have a response email. I saw that they have one in their Burnett County plan. But as you just mentioned, you and regional planning just met this morning, and this work was being done for a couple months beforehand. So, I'm more than happy not to have to get another email and use that. That would be very confusing to the public. And if regional planning would do the survey for the committees too, that's absolutely fine with me.
So I distinguish between an open-ended input and responding to a survey. That might be two different things. Other comments? Charlie?
If we could go
I
back,
have a comment.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Mr. Ortman has the floor.
All right, going back to B for a second. I was wondering if the NWRPC could make a list of nearby governments that we might cooperate with. I like what they put in here, but I don't see, like in the data section, who are the people closest that we might deal with intergovernmentally. And I don't know if it's too late for them to do that or not, but if they could.
Are you speaking of units within the county or neighboring units?
All of them. I mean, I think if we're going to ask department heads to be changing their state of mind to think about you know, how might I coordinate with different governments? They probably want to know who those might be. I mean, we know the tribe, we know the city, but the townships, I don't think we have a comprehensive list that someone who isn't so familiar could look through, but maybe we do. I don't know.
Yeah, no, we work with, obviously Bayfield County we have a joint dispatch now. We've worked with Price County, on
Yeah.
child support.
Yeah,
And that's the area where we might further develop a stronger relationship. And then we just started, with doing some work with Iron County.
I wasn't suggesting for a minute that we weren't doing a lot of
Yeah.
cooperation, but I
But
don't
those are
know
the
if
main
there's a
ones.
list of all the local governments. That's the first thing I thought of. Well, who are these people that we should be thinking about coordinating more if we should?
Yeah, I should point out, Charlie's element is the intergovernmental cooperation element, so it's particularly pertinent to to the needs of that subgroup. Was that Lisa online that had a comment? No?
Elizabeth Franick.
Oh, okay. Hi, Liz. Go ahead.
Hi, my question is, does Northwest Regional Planning have a Facebook site? And if so, we could publish the planning committee notices agenda on that site and put the email address for people to email suggestions for the, for the feedback, if that would be working, because a lot of people, don't have much time to sit there and email, but they might if they see that, what's on the agenda first, and then they can find out what they want to, talk about. Thank you.
Alyssa, you have some experience with those modes of communication. You have a comment on that?
Yeah, and like I said, the public participation plan apparently just went out this morning, and I've been sick with the flu, so I haven't seen it. But I know for the components that I was working on for outreach, use a lot of social media. My UW Extension work page is very active, and I share links about community issues to about 20 different social pages throughout Ashland County. So we could certainly share a link to a survey repeatedly through social media. We also want to spend a focused amount of time on reaching businesses like through the chamber. So I don't know if that's in the communication plan. Our churches in the community are well networked, and they have ways to reach a lot of people, as well as all of our seniors. So I think there's a lot of ways you can reach through social media and other direct contacts.
Any further comments, Erica?
I just wanted to clarify that as I understood it with the Northwest Regional Planning meeting this morning, the digital survey that they are offering would just be one, and it would be for the entire county. So it would be a sort of broad-based, several questions. I believed it was something like, the rough draft was like 4 pages. So I think that if Lissa wants to envision smaller surveys for each different group, that needs to be a separate thing, because I don't think Northwest Regional is willing to do that. And I don't think they have the capacity to do several surveys for us and tally them.
Well, how about after we all review the potential plan that just went out, we could talk about it more. It's nice to have one survey link that we can share with all the different groups. I'm just thinking mainly of making sure that we have critical audiences that we want to make sure they get a link to any kind of survey. Might be confusing to have different ones for different groups, but I would know more after I read the plan that we just received. But like I said, if you wanted surveys for something specific, like a specific group, that's easily done and free to use.
Further comments, Brad?
I just like clarification. We're talking about setting up a email with the county, and Alyssa made it sound like Rachel can't do that. That seems, but you mentioned .edu. Well, Rachel probably can't do .edu, but she should be able to do .gov, right?
Yes, we did have one, and we asked that it be allowed to forward it to me and to Blake, our office manager, so that we have a backup person in case I'm out of town or something. For whatever reason, the emails weren't coming to me, but they were able to get forwarded to Blake. And at that point, Rachel decided to not offer that as a service. So that is when we said, well, who else could? And we looked into UW. So UW's IT is looking at it right now to see if they can do one for us with a .edu.
Okay. I think we need an email address that is, and maybe even have George receive it as well, just so that there's, maybe Erica, multiple people are on there. It shouldn't be hard to set up.
No, it's not.
If nothing else, I'll set up a Google Groups that goes to everybody, and we have a generic Google Groups one.
No,
That's all right.
we have an admin at email that we can use for that too. And that goes to Lori and I.
Okay.
The chair would agree that such a thing should go to the chair and the vice chair.
Oh,
I'll talk to Rachel about setting up an email.
So
Yeah, and
you go ahead.
well, she sent an email last week, so maybe that would help inform it for you, Dan. I think it went to you and me and Mary Pardee.
Yeah, Lisa, I think the problem it has to do with the UW server, which is why there's an issue.
Yeah, we couldn't quite tease it out just because Blake was getting it, who's on an EDU extension. So
Yeah,
I think it would be great to have a deeper conversation with Rachel. It'd be wonderful in my view, if it could have like an Ashland County address. People, know that right away and probably trust that the most, if it's possible.
So if we proceed with the plan to have our meetings scheduled out to the balance of the year, and if we give public notice that people can access and provide input through these meetings, it would make sense just to have an email address listed in the agenda, because the agendas are posted in the calendar on the Ashland County website. So this will definitely be on the agenda for the next meeting. So any further discussion on this development of public participation? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 5D, which is initiation of planning committee subcommittees, working groups for development of comprehensive plan elements. And I thought we needed to probably formalize this. We had previously agreed on our assignments, but I just wanted to give it a second chance for any revisions that might be necessary. So I have down that Mr. Ortman will chair the Intergovernmental Cooperation Elements subgroup, and that Lissa will deal with trends and issues, that Liz Feronik will deal with cultural resources and community facilities, that Pat Kinney will deal with agriculture, forestry, and natural resources, that George Bousset will deal with transportation and utilities, Brad Ray will deal with housing, that Gary Mertig will deal with land use and economic development, and that Lissa will deal with risk and opportunities. So if we are in agreement, I'd like us to formally vote to approve this plan and empower those subcommittee chairpersons to engage and select people for the committees. And I would encourage that at least one county board member be recruited to be on each committee. And I will ask at the next county board members that all county board members consider participating at least in one of the working groups. So what are the thoughts on this proposal?
George,
Brad?
from this scope of work from Northwest Regional Planning, it lists the categories slightly different that match what the old plan have, what we've talked about. And yet we talked about maybe kind of reorganizing some of those ideas, and that's based off of what you just read off there. But I just wonder if maybe there isn't some benefit to going back to this idea of how these were grouped in the old plan, how Northwest Regional Planning lists them in their scope of work, and having them grouped, because we're using their expertise. If we start splitting it, maybe they lose something in that split. And so maybe to follow what they list as that, which, you know, combined, separated utilities and transportation into transportation, utilities, and community facilities, for example. But yet you had community facilities and cultural resources separated out, which they have cultural resources with agricultural and natural resources. And I know based off of the committee structure, what we have makes sense, but then all of a sudden we're deviating from maybe what the sections of the plan might look from. So I think maybe we need a little bit more discussion on what these groupings should be. I know we talked about them, but then what's listed here in this plan that we just got this afternoon from last week goes back to the way the old plan is, and maybe there's some rationale that Northwest Regional Planning has that those groups.
We don't have any idea of when Northwest Regional is going to get us the basic data, right? For just the background document. I just wonder if at least some of the committees might want that before they really start moving with people's opinions and what to plan off of that data. We didn't, I don't know if we can assume that they will have the data for each period before they run a meeting. Those 8 meetings that they run for us.
So are you saying that you think it's a prerequisite for our subcommittee working groups to have that data before they can begin? That doesn't seem.
I don't know
necessary
if
to
it's a hard prerequisite, but I would say, you know, you could certainly have conversations about what do you need? What do you see on the horizon? But then when people see hard data, that shifts them into much more specific thinking and alignment with what their priorities are. So I would think that you wouldn't want the data, any more than 1/3 into the entire process of meeting. If it's going to be 3 meetings, you would want it by meeting 2, right? To start that.
Well, I mean, subcommittee working groups can meet at any time. They're not tied to the schedule at all. So other comments first before I respond. Charlie?
Am I a voting member? I don't recall. Okay.
Yes, you are a voting
I
member.
feel like we initially talked about it and I wasn't.
Yeah,
so-
that was, you were formally voted a voting member. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
thank you for that reminder. I don't think that my element really requires a subcommittee. I thought that I've already made some ideas that I think would be more than adequate to intergovernmental cooperation, and I thought I would go to the department heads and see what they thought about intergovernmental cooperation, and if the ideas I presented were adequate, and if they had any of their own. However, that said, I'm not against having a subcommittee either. I just wanted to tell you my thoughts.
Well, as long as each working group subcommittee incorporates a broad reach of input from the community and relevant concerned constituents. And that might mean having several people in a discussion group as a subcommittee, so that there's more than one mind working on these the ideas. And that may be reaching out to county boardships members, to townships, and to others that might want to be represented. So to me, it belongs to the subcommittee chairperson is how they want to do that.
Okay.
So Brad, the elements that you've seen in our 16 plan that you see in all of the plans, like in Burnett or Sawyer counties, are the statutorily required elements. And all our elements all align with those. We've just we've subdivided some of those elements into two pieces so that we could more logically put the cultural pieces in one basket. So you have your cultural facilities and there are cultural other resources. But then there are like hard facilities that are different than cultural facilities that are more like utilities. And that's the reason but they still, in the final product, it has to go back into the format that's required statutorily. But we're still gathering the same information. It's just that hard utilities like the waterworks, water supply or electricity is not really a cultural facility like the senior center. So the committee focus is more cultural in the one area, but there's both facilities and services. And the other committee is more hard things like electrical, internet, water, transportation. Those are the hard services that are not cultural, but they're necessary to the community. That's why it's been divided that way, but still has to go back into the form statutorily provided and will be presented that way in our final plan. Does it get to the problem that you have?
Well, yeah, it's just, but then we've got two, like the prime example is the agricultural, natural and cultural resources, pulling off cultural resources and putting that someplace else temporarily, but then putting it back in. It's probably fine, but I just worry that, I mean, that's to me is such a huge section of what this plan is going to be, those three. And so maybe they need to be separated out and then brought back together. But when cultural resources is grouped with community, was it community facilities that they got? Now we're going to have to separate cultural resources and community facilities because they go in two different categories. I think it's fine to pull one thing out and have cultural resources as its own thing that we're worried about. But I think when we combine two different categories and put them together, I worry that it's going to be hard to tease those apart to put them back into where they belong. That's just a little concern. And the fact that it is the statutorily written the exact way it's in this, maybe it's better to have utilities and community facilities are together. Maybe we have somebody do both those separate, two different people do them separate is fine. But I think they kind of come back together where if we're trying to put two together, didn't you have cultural resources and community facilities as one thing? Yeah,
On page 7 of the Burnett plan, which gives the focus groups which match the statutory requirements, other than they did not include trends and issues and risk and opportunities as separate ones. So housing, distinct. Transportation, they did not put utilities like electrical or internet with transportation. I did that. And then the next one there was utility. They had utilities grouped with community facilities, but community facilities are like schools and hospitals and senior centers. They are both cultural and physical facilities. So that's why, because some of these facilities are really cultural institutions.
So
you see.
so the statutorily written is for that section is such as sanitary sewer service, stormwater management, water supply, solid waste disposal, on-site wastewater treatment technologies, recycling facility, parks, telecommunication facilities, power generation, generating plants and transmission lines, cemeteries, healthcare facilities, childcare facilities, and other public facilities such as police, fire, and rescue.
So some of those facilities are, in my mind, are cultural facilities like parks or childcare facilities. And others are utilities like sewer services or electrical.
But see, that's where I think that we're muddying the waters by pulling out and trying to combine or take parks and then we're going to merge them back in to meet the statutory requirements. We're going to do parks separate and then merge it back in. It's just, I worry that it's gonna be harder to put it back together again because we're making it more complicated is what I worry about.
Let me say this, the statutory requirement is not that we list these in the one through 7 order and wording that has been presented here or in our prior plan. The statutory requirement is that all of these subjects be covered. Very simple.
I would, reading the statutory language is a comprehensive plan shall contain all of the following elements and it lists A through I. Those have to be listed is my reading of that because it says shall in there. So we can't put transportation utilities in the plan. We have to have transportation so we're going to pull utilities back out and then we're going to put utilities back in with community facilities.
Any other perspectives on this? Dan?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hearing a lot of things that actually don't pertain to the county. So we wouldn't necessarily want them to be in a county comprehensive plan because there are issues that we don't deal with. Like, we don't have a wastewater facility. That's a city issue. So it properly belongs in the city's comp plan, but not ours. We don't have a water utility because again, that's a city or a town or village issue. And they should have that in their comp plan. So for us, utilities is broadband because counties had a say in BEAD. And that's about all we have for utilities because the state controls the oil pipelines. The state controls the Xcel Energy generation. The state controls all that stuff. So we don't really have a say on some of these things. So, I mean, should we spending time on things that are not county related, other than mentioning in passage that, our communities have this park, this park, this park. But, other than that, I mean, I guess that's my question.
Is there, Charlie? Charlie has the floor and then you next.
I guess, not to belabor it too much, but continuity across documents would eliminate confusion as well, even though your groupings seem a little better in some areas. I think I have to agree with Brad on the confusion it might cause from other people looking at this draft of this plan and then how the NWRPC is presenting it, who we have hired. So that's just my 2 cents and I'll do my best, whatever it says. Thank you.
Was there somebody online that wanted to speak?
Yeah, just a quick comment from Lissa. I think this is a great topic for Northwest Regional Planning with all of their experience over the years and over the counties. I mentioned several times that Extension had been meeting with these work groups just to go through these different elements to look at the county's current plan in light of weather patterns and extreme weather, how extreme weather and storms and natural disasters have already affected the county. And what we found is that although the county might not own a utility, how the utility does its business in the county, it's really important to know about it and see how the relationship might be built to protect ourselves in the future from, say, power outages from, a huge storm or something. So they had an action, the specialists who were meeting about utilities, we had Norvado there, and he gave us a lot of insight into how extreme weather has already affected Norvado's capacity to deliver services in the county and what might be expected in the future. So I think it's a great point of conversation that I would personally love to hear more from regional planning about how this integration of the county as a unit managing itself in a comp plan, but we're not out by ourselves without a lot of intergovernmental and interinstitutional activities and responsibilities. So I think this is a really important point that needs a lot more discussion from experts like regional planning. And a side note of that is, I've been working with 5 of the 9 chapters or elements. So I have really great lists of contacts. If anybody who is pulling their groups together wants the list of names of people who in our county are experts in that topic. And I have a list of people who actually were able to give input. So I'd be happy to share the names of those people in 5 of the groups.
Erica?
Just quick reminder, I think if we want to know what has normally been included in a comp plan for utilities or intergovernmental cooperation, if we go back to the 2016, it's really clear about what they include and what they don't have. But to Dan's point, I think that a quick skim tells us that the previous plan included more than we necessarily need to. But at least it'll give us a framework about where to start.
And George, I agree with your groupings are better, but I worry about the confusion that's going to be caused by making sure we hit the statutory requirements. And that's all I'm worried about is, and I think Liz's idea of meeting with Northwest Regional Planning and saying, hey, can we adjust these to make more logical sense in our minds? Can we do that? Then
So-
yeah, but I'm worried that we're going to put something together and then pull it apart and fit it in. It's just, I worry that it's going to cause more work.
So we met with them this morning. They didn't have any problem with this.
Oh, okay.
They were fine. They know that I regrouped it, but what we there's what we need to put in the plan and what ends up in the plan. But then there's the gathering of the input from the citizenry, which can be anything. And can be very broad reaching and ought to come from a multitude of different entities, whether they're part of the county operation or not. So what we discussed with regional planning this morning is that we really need them to redo all the data. We can't do that. And to give us guidance on putting together the final plan. And that our job, because we're all volunteers mostly, is to do the solicitation of thoughts and inputs from the community, the whole county, from La Pointe to Butternut, from county boards to town boards to general citizens. So that's the way I see it. Our job is to let people express their thoughts, and some of those thoughts not going to fit into a county plan because it's a sewage system in Ashland. It's not our job, but we'll know that they're worried about it. So let people say what they're going to say. That's my perspective on this. And we could certainly go back to reassigning who's going to work on what here. I'm perfectly comfortable myself separately doing transportation and utilities. Those are different people you need to talk to. And Liz, do you have any issue with dealing with the question of cultural resources versus community facilities?
No.
And I don't think Pat had any problem with doing agricultural, forestry, and natural resources. Gary didn't seem to have any problem with, keeping an eye on land use and doing economic development. So Charlie was fine with, I don't think any of us had a problem with what our assignments were.
But I'm also the one who's there, so I just like I thought we were just going to be able to have it with what Northwest Regional Planning put together their scope of work. I thought they were going to follow this different thing a little bit. I thought I hadn't looked at the statutory requirements of that it says shall. And so then when I see shall, that means it has to be grouped that way in my mind. That's how I read state statute, but.
Yeah, I didn't read it that way. I read it as we shall include these subjects.
If it
Not
was,
that the
if it,
subject had to be listed in that order.
but the fact that they're listed as A through I, you have to include A through I, and I would say you have to include it in that grouping. The way I read state statute, that's how I read that. But, and so I'm fine if people like Liz that has community facilities and cultural resources is going to be able to separate those back into the groupings, then I'm fine. It's not going to affect me. But I just fear that there might be more work to get it, if it's got to, we're doing something one way and it's got to spin back into a different way. But I'm fine with it. Because it doesn't affect mine at all. So.
Further discussion. Charlie,
I'm sure I've confused myself mightily, but we're talking about a public participation plan. So and the focus groups are also our subcommittees, right? The same thing? So are we going to, as a subcommittee, then are we gonna offer ourselves to the public for an hour on a Tuesday or something? Is that gonna be a notice thing where then the public comes in and it's like a hearing? Or is this just,
I think it's up to the chair of the subcommittee as how they want to reach out, collect information.
so the public participation plan though? We have to have some public input to our focus group to be doing what we're supposed to be doing with this public participation plan.
That would be a good idea.
Yes, okay, well, so is there something in the plan stating how we'll interact in getting that public input as a focus group? Or,
Not specifically. I think you have a lot of leeway as how you run your focus group.
okay,
The public will be invited to give input at any and all of our planning committee meetings. Eventually, there'll be a couple of public hearings in general when we get to the integrated plan. Focus group subcommittee could have a public hearing if you thought that was necessary.
okay.
And it doesn't have to be just here. It could be anywhere in the county. So if you wanted to hold a public meeting in Mellon, you could.
It could depend on our individual time and energy, I think, I mean, practically, but you could get really creative. If there's no further discussion, can we agree on this rough outline that we have so thoroughly discussed? Would that still be okay?
Just to make it simple, I'll make the motion to approve these task groups with the designated committee members as chairs of those task groups.
Could I have a second, please?
Is this for the committees or for this plan?
This is for the committees.
Okay, I will second the committees.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Any opposed? So we've approved our committee structure, which fits into the comprehensive plan, which the people who are online haven't had a chance to look at the marked up version yet. The marked up version will be in your mail slots this afternoon in Dan's office, because I'll put them there. And that'll be on the approval of the public participation plan will be on the agenda for our next meeting. Okay,
All right.
moving on. Brainstorming and round robin inputs from individual members. So this is like, okay, open session, green lighting, if anybody wants to contribute thoughts or ideas. Creativity time. Or we just move on. Charlie, what? You have a little floor?
I'm just gonna tell you what I was thinking about the intergovernmental thing. To me, it's more of a state of mind that the departments would need to get into what everything they're doing. Is there some way I can coordinate with whatever government seems applicable and to what end? What would I save here? How would this advantage them and or me? So I was thinking training about intergovernmental, if there's any trainings available for department heads and maybe even staff, because it really is a state of mind. And then of course that list of other governments, so a person could look down and see, all right, well, what town, where am I? What other governments might be affected by this? How might I save some money? And then I was figuring to create a list of trigger questions that a department head could look down and answer to give them some clarity on whether this is an intergovernmental cooperation opportunity or not. And then we'd have to have a goal, which I'm still fuzzy about how I would write that, but that would be the dog-eared part of the plan that the department heads use to make
May I
sure.
make an observation?
Yes, you may.
I don't see our bailiwick as being interdepartmental. That's Dan's bailiwick. Our bailiwick, as I could see, is interrelationships with other governmental bodies in the county, such
Yeah.
as the tribal council, the town boards, different commissions.
I agree. Yeah.
But interdepartmental is something as far as.
No, I don't mean interdepartmental in that they should be coordinating, but I assume they do. I meant so a department like let's say, highways is building a road somewhere and goes through a township. I mean, I think every department head has to look for opportunities for intergovernmental cooperation. That's how I
Yeah,
intended
so
that.
county township kind of cooperation, yeah, sure. And
Yeah.
city.
But that's when you get that list of governments, then they go, okay, who of all the governments nearby to me, is there any opportunity in this activity that I'm doing? Should I look for an intergovernmental cooperation opportunity here? To what end? I presume to save us money, to save them money. There's got to be a benefit. And I think that's where you design the questionnaire, the trigger question. But anyway, those are my thoughts on that for now. And I'm sure I'll be asking Dan to be part of my subcommittee. Thank you, George.
Us. Erica,
Just wondering if the committee might think it's a good idea for me to perhaps write a brief press release about the comp plan, about getting the grant for the comp plan. I would think that before we did that, we might want to have either the email set up. Will we also have a web page somewhere about the comp plan, about the development of the comp plan? I thought that had been mentioned somewhere, but I cannot now recall.
There, you go to the county website and then you go to the extension website.
Right,
You can find the old plans.
right. No, but I'm talking about the plan and process, right? So like a contact for something about, I don't know. Maybe we
Just
won't
a
be doing that.
Public information piece,
Yeah.
informative.
Just
Okay.
to,
Here's what we're
notify
doing.
people that,
I have a question for you, Dan. Is our current comprehensive plan on the Ashland County website? I couldn't find it.
Yeah, it is. It's, she's going to it right now. You go up to departments, UW extension,
It's kind of hard to get to. Yep.
and then I think it's on the far right.
Okay, it's on ashlandcounty.gov/extension. Okay.
And then
But then it
extension
takes you what to the
website.
extension website?
Yeah.
So why is it on the extension website and not the Ashland County website? I'm thinking about how an ordinary person living in Ashland or Mellon or out in the country is going to find it. I just don't know how, I couldn't find it going to the Ashland County website. I mean, I already knew and have accessed it on the extension website. I knew where to go, but how does the average person know where to go?
Yeah, it's a difficult journey. I agree.
really the only way to find it directly is to Google it and then click
Yeah.
on the link.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
the website is way too long to remember. You can't publish that and have people then type it in a 70-character website, right? So, yeah, we would just have to say like, Google these words.
Well,
We could
I'll,
put a link in our agendas. There's another link we could put in the
Well,
agenda.
I could ask
each
Rachel
time.
to set up a grouping on our website for planning committee.
And again, we're finding in extension, the use of those QR codes or a bit.ly function, which takes the really long website address and makes it into like a 12-character web link is really much more easy to use and user-friendly. Not everyone likes those QR codes, but we're finding that we get a lot more engagement when we have those on our flyers and posters and websites and things.
Question for you, this, the QR code something you can use on a laptop?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a free generator on a website, and it gives you, you can even pick what your little picture looks like, what color it is, all that stuff, or you can keep it really simple. And
I
it
mean,
works
if I'm
everywhere.
I'm the person who wants to find a website. I live out in the boondocks in the national forest. I have a laptop. Can I go on my
Yeah.
laptop and go through a QR code that's portrayed on the laptop to get to the link? Or do
Yeah.
I need to use a phone?
No, if the QR code is on the web, if you're on a website with the QR code and
Yeah.
you click that QR code, it will automatically take you to it if you're on there. Now, if you have a picture of a QR code on your laptop, you will likely not be able to get your laptop to do it unless it's got the capability with the camera, and most likely it does not on
And a
laptop.
touch screen.
Yeah, and a touchscreen. But if you go to a website that or there a QR code online and you click on it, it will take you right to the website it's doing. But if you have a flyer, you get something mailed and try to hold it up against your camera on your computer, I don't think it will work.
Thank you.
I think it depends on your phone. I know we when we put flyers up around town, we've checked them and just put your phone up. So I think it depends on the phone, but there are multiple ways to use that QR code, as you just described, as clicking on it works too. But I totally agree. I mean, the only reason it's on the Extension's website is because Extension was the facilitator last time, and we figured it was easier to have all municipalities links right on that website. But I think the county could easily make its own page and put the county's current plan and all of the other municipalities as well. That would be pretty easy.
Any other brainstorms? Charlie?
I'm just wondering why the comprehensive plan couldn't just be right on the opening page. Can you hear me?
I'm actually emailing Rachel that right now.
Oh, because I mean, that's our plan, and that should be one of the first things people could check without having to go anywhere else. But anyway,
Right. And I think going back with the idea of the press release, I think eventually when we're ready for that, when we have an email address, we have the plan set up. But looking at the Ashland or the Extension website, it has a lot of stuff already set up. We could just work with Lisa to update it. Because it says like, how can citizens provide input? Well, there's a tab already there, and we could still use this website unless it's easier to have it housed on Ashland County, but the link could be right on the homepage to this page.
yeah,
And go right there, however. But yeah, I think press release, Facebook blast, all that social media stuff, get that out there, because ultimately what we want is citizens to come and say, hey, what they think that we missed the last plan, or that we haven't been doing that's in the last plan, and pointing that out to us so that we can work to fix that.
yeah.
Public notice that I wrote.
Yep.
I tried to make it a little bit provocative because it can be so hard to get people to actually come out and say something. You know, we offer public comment all the time, and very seldom does anybody actually show up. So that's why I wanted to say Ashland County priorities for the next 10 to 20 years. I thought that would kind of shock people
Right.
just a little bit. He's like, what do you mean? You're planning the next 20 years for me? But the intention is really just to grab some attention and get people to notice that they can come to our planning committee meetings and say something. And just that all by itself meets a whole lot of the legal requirement for public input. And it covers us, it's in our meeting minutes. So I would like to get this out there as soon as we can agree on a schedule for our meetings, which happens to be, I think, the next item on the agenda.
Could I say
Yes,
one
please.
more under 5E?
Okay, go back to
Um,
brainstorming. Go ahead.
Sorry about that.
no.
Just about, I think thanks to Erica, I'm home sick today, so I appreciate Erica making copies of a survey that actually she and I started to reach our senior members because we all know how much our population is expected to increase with folks over the age of 65. So this plan will have to have a lot of considerations for our senior members' needs and services. So we went to 2 senior lunches to talk to them face to face and offer a print survey so that they could give us our feedback. And then Laura Negro, the director of the county aging unit, allowed us to put that same survey in the lunches of the Meals on Wheels recipients. So we gave them self-addressed stamped envelope to mail their comments back to us. And out of 130 seniors getting Meals on Wheels, we got 33 replies. So just to give you a little snapshot of the seniors' responses, I tallied all those and typed out their comments that they wrote so you could get a feel for how a survey might be working. Also get a feel for the needs of seniors.
Right, so we do
Well,
have
thank-
that in front of us, listen,
Yeah, thanks for taking a look at it.
really interesting. Other brainstorms and just general comments? So if not, we move on to F, which is 5F, Planning Committee and Public Participation for 18-month calendar. The only thing I'm really concerned about today is to see if I can convince anybody that it would be a good idea just to call it the third Monday of each month. Any thoughts?
Oh, it works for me.
Now, there were some thoughts about time of day. Is 1 o'clock still a good placeholder? I mean, any meeting could be changed, but I wanted like to get these on the calendar throughout the year.
Right. Later in the day works better for me.
Okay.
But I understand the people that live in the southern part of the county also, in December don't want to be driving home at 4 o'clock either. So, I can be flexible. I don't know if Gary's online or, since he lives, but, driving down Highway 13 at the end of a meeting that ends later is just as difficult as me leaving work in an hour and a half, 2 hours early. So
if it's okay with everybody, I'd like to put just a placeholder in the third Monday of each month, 1 o'clock here at the courthouse. We can book out those dates and then we can change as needed, one meeting at a time.
I work at 3 o'clock today, so every Monday I work at 3, so that's why I've been home. I'm not feeling good. I still have to go to work, so it's not really a good time for me, but if it's a good time for everybody else, that's okay, because I can always catch up. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Other comments?
yeah, so if Mondays don't work, then is there another day that would?
Who knows? It's different for all of us.
I appreciate if you put it on my calendar, there's a good chance I can block that off at work and then it doesn't get overbooked. But I mean, there's other times stuff's going to pop up that I don't have to say in, but it's better chance the further I know in advance.
There's going to be certain work and personal priorities that just take precedent over coming to a planning committee meeting.
Right.
It's just going to happen. But if we don't have my idea is that if we have a meeting and we don't have a quorum, we go right to the public access period and have some coffee and donuts and maybe some ideas will come up. So I'm going to ask Dan to put that on the calendar for the balance of the year. And then we can look at whether we can do a public notice or not. I take your guidance on that, Dan.
Yeah, no, I think a public notice is good. Certainly won't hurt anything and will probably help things. So if you, when you get home, if you could just email that to Heather, she can publish it in all the newspapers.
Should we wait on the public notice until we have definitive that there's an email address, that there's where the website might be, so that they can find that comprehensive and put that in there? Should we wait on the public note? I like the public notice idea, but should we wait until, if we're going to migrate the plan to the county website so that at least we can tell you, here's where it is?
This particular public notice is only inviting people to come to our planning committee meetings.
Right.
Right.
So there's like, keep it simple. They know they can look at the
Okay.
calendar on the Ashland County website. They can see when the planning committee meeting is, and they know that they're invited to come and say something. I mean, it'll be more later.
That works then too. Yep,
Okay.
that works.
So,
And I'll ask Heather to publish it in all the newspapers in the county. I'll ask Heather to publish it in all the newspapers in the county. So that make sure everybody down south has the opportunity to see it.
anything else to be thought about with regard to the calendar? In this Burnett County marked up one to be Ashland County, there is kind of a calendarization of the stages of the plan. And so I think that part of it ends up in our discussion at our next meeting when we look to approve this public participation plan. If you look in there toward the back, it's a whole, it's like blocked out pieces there. Well, maybe it's not the back. See, where is that? Or-
And George, it looked
Oh,
like,
no, that's not where it is. It's in the scope of work plan.
yeah,
That's where it is, yeah. In the scope of work, that seems to be a good guideline as of this point in time with, for us to further consider. So I would say pretty much that's our guideline for the next 18 months. And just, yeah, and other than that, we have meeting dates and we have a guideline for the
do
process.
we, if Liz works at 3, do we want to think of a different day? I don't know, like if you've already talked to Gary and Pat that aren't here, if Monday worked best for them or.
Well, I know the best day for Pat is any day it rains. I know, I think he can be flexible.
But I almost wonder if there's some other day so that Liz has a chance to be here if there's another
Maybe the
day
same
other
day
than.
Thank you.
Clear, maybe at noon. She gotta go to.
Yeah,
3.
would meeting earlier, like at noon, be helpful, Liz?
Sure, that'd be fine.
Okay, does the Northwest Regional already has a standing 1 o'clock meeting on the third Wednesday? So we're talking Monday.
Oh, and she said.
Oh, but she said Northwest Regional Planning already has third Monday. She meant Monday.
Yeah,
No, but
No,
look
they-
at this.
she corrected it to Monday.
Stars Monday there.
so,
So Monday probably isn't the right appropriate day anyway, if Northwest Regional Planning won't be able to ever make those meetings as well.
Go back to that. Every third Monday that they have that?
Says standing Monday.
Standing meeting of 5 for the month. That's important.
Yeah.
Anybody have a good idea?
So I'd recommend like either Tuesday or Tuesday would probably be good for me, but
We often have county board meetings on Tuesdays or Thursdays.
How about the fourth Monday of every month?
Third Monday works really well on the calendar. If third Monday works really well on the calendar for us a year. How about a morning meeting? Is that not good?
not Monday mornings. There's
Yeah,
no
no,
there's no
terrible.
chance I can do Monday mornings.
well, going forward, as long as you claim the room before somebody else does, it's your meeting.
I think we have to stick with 1 o'clock on Monday and we'll have to figure out something with Northwest Regional Planning.
Could we do the second Monday?
You run into some blockages there. Let's see. If I look at the calendar. Okay, so in June, the second Monday is the 9th. In July, the second Monday is the 14th. Not terrible. In August, it's the 11th. September, it's the 8th. October is the 13th. November, the 10th. And December, the 15th. It sounds like it would work. Second Monday?
Good by me.
The issue with Mondays is Liz works at 3.
Yeah.
Second Monday at noon?
And me leaving work at 11:30 in the morning
Oh,
is tough to do. I work a half an hour away from here.
Yeah,
It's tough for me to leave at 11:30. I can justify 12:30, but 11:30 is tough. And so one is already pushing it. So Monday might just not be the best day. And we go ahead and do the second Wednesday, or like if we're worried about that, or like
third Wednesday.
the third Wednesday, whatever. It's Mondays are tough because it's the start of
Yeah.
the week. I have a bunch of stuff I have to do on Mondays.
George,
It's
Right.
tough.
George, Gary has his hand up.
Oh,
Yeah.
Gary, you want to say something?
Yeah, I still think we need to talk to Northwest Regional Planning and say, hey, we're paying you all this money for this process and guiding us. What is going to work for them? Because at a certain point, they're going to write this book. So maybe we need to get them on board as what works for them and then set the meetings.
Well, it looks like, according to their plan, talking this morning, they've been participating in about half of our meetings, or at least prepared to facilitate them. And maybe, but I think they also want to be included in many of them, so that's a good idea. But this is going to delay, this is going to hold us up for our next meeting. Can we just, okay, so could we plan the next meeting to be, pick a day and a time for June? What would be good?
I definitely will not be available on the 16th.
Okay,
100%, because I'm gone for 3 weeks of vacation, and anytime before then. I'm gone for 3 weeks, so there's no way I can leave early after being gone for 3 weeks.
is there any day in June? Or is it all, the month's gone?
No, I mean, well, it's tough. Because I don't know. I have some things that have to get done in the last 2 weeks of June that I'm around. So June's gonna be tight for me. But doing Tuesday or Wednesday is better for me than doing Mondays. So I would say if you pencil in the 18th, there's a better chance if you're worried about the 17th.
I like that plan.
June 18th? Is that what we said?
That's a Wednesday that I probably can manage at 1 o'clock.
Okay, let's just, rather than schedule out the year, then just
Why not?
June 18 is our next meeting. And what time works for you, Liz?
Anytime, because I can request the day off.
Okay, then it's up to you, Brad.
Well, if Gary's all right, 2 o'clock's better for me.
Gary?
Anytime works for me.
Okay, 2 o'clock, June 18th, and we'll worry about the rest of the year. What is it? Comes running at us, Dan?
Yeah, I'll email Northwest Regional and try to get some consistent time locked down.
All right, so we are at item number 7. Unless there's more, is any more on the future meeting dates? That means we're at our second period.
Oh, sorry. I just looked at my work calendar. I will not be here on June 18th at 1 o'clock.
You'll propose another day?
I can do Tuesday, I can do Thursday, I can do Friday that week.
Liz, what's a good day for you?
Any day besides Monday.
Okay, Tuesday the 17th? Tuesday, June 17th,
Sure.
That works for me.
2 o'clock? Gary?
Yeah,
Tues-
that works.
Okay, June 17, 2 o'clock. Hope that works for Pat, but it was just set for that one next meeting. So any other thing on meeting scheduling? So we move to our second public comment period. Is there anybody present who'd like to make a public comment? Anybody online who'd like to make a public comment related to this agenda? Anybody online? Anybody present? We will, hearing none, we move on to item number 8, which is to adjourn the meeting and move to our period of generalized public access with no action. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Charlie moves to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded by Brad. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
We are now in adjournment and open for generalized public access without any action. Thank you.
Have a good day, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.
To-
Yes, you could restart recording now.